Hello, everybody, and welcome once again to Nerd to the Third Power, your one-stop shop for all things nerdy and awesome. I'm your host, Master of Ceremonies, Dr. Gonzo, and Mike, it's looking like it's just you and me tonight.
I'm the cat, and I'm Skyblaze. That's my impression of them. They're gonna hit me for this, but yes, it is just us tonight.
Well,
Nerd to the third, nerd to the power of two-ish, whatever, deuce.
Yeah, so it's just the two of us tonight. Kat unfortunately had a death in the family, so she is taking care of that. And Skyblaze, I don't know where she is, so we're just gonna soldier on. And this week we are discussing Star Trek Picard, the CBS All Access exclusive series that just wrapped up. I think if not last week, the week before. So
Yes.
we watched through it, and we have thoughts, and we're going to share those with you. But of course, there is procedure to follow, so we're going to begin as always with Ask a Geek. And the first question that we have here is a question that a lot of people are asking. This one comes from Eric, and his question is, how crazy are you guys going in self-isolation? I already posted this on my Facebook, but I don't know if those of you who pay attention, you guys know that I live in Maryland, and we just, as we recording this, we just yesterday got the stay-at-home order from the governor. So I'm just here like, God, I'm already having a hard enough time keeping my social life up with this. Now with the stay-at-home order, I'm going to be going Gollum in like a few months.
We forgets the feel of the sun. We forgets the taste of bread. We even forgets our own name.
Well, for myself, I'd like to quote the greatest cinematic achievement of Jean-Claude Van Damme of 1994, and that's Street Fighter. And where Raul Julia's character says, "The day Bison graced your life was the greatest day, but for me, it was Tuesday."
I was about to say, you're stuck at home on a good day, aren't you?
Yeah, exactly. This is nothing to me. Literally, I don't leave the house. The last time I left the house was in the middle of March to go for my weight loss surgery weigh-in, which, by the way, I'm down 55 pounds. Go me. The only thing social distancing has changed is I can't hug and kiss my wife, which sucks. I'm looking at her right now. She's blowing me kisses. Just because we both have compromised immune systems, and our sister-in-law, who's a nurse practitioner, who's a frontline worker during all this, has advised us to further quarantine and self-isolate. So we're just going to play it safe because she's the only one in our house who does the shopping. So we have to play things a little bit safer than normal. But ultimately, it just means, for Twig anyway, I've ramped up production significantly on some other projects. But yeah, I'm stuck at home anyway. This is no different than any other Tuesday for me. So I'm soldiering on, keeping busy, making sure I keep my audiences entertained as I can. If I've got as one of my friends used to say, if you got time to lean, you got time to clean, which means if you got time to produce, well, get on it. So why not?
Yeah, because I work from home even before this was going on. I didn't anticipate it being, in terms of just my general lifestyle, this hasn't really caused a major change for me. But it's like, it's one of those things where it's like, on a normal day, I'm perfectly happy to stay at home by myself and not go out and not have to deal with people. But then the minute they tell me that I have to stay home and I can't go out, that's when I immediately start like, okay, I really want to have a friend over for some Smash Brothers and some duck game, and now I'm climbing on the walls and perching from the ceiling like a bat.
Yeah, I mean, it sucks because when the order came down from our provincial government here in Ontario, literally that day I was planning on having our mutual friend Alex over, and we're going to record a bunch of DVD commentaries, and then my sister-in-law was like, "No, you're not." And we're like, "Why? Social distancing." I'm like, "What's that?" And then she explained it to me like, "Oh, right. Don't want to die. That would be bad." So yeah, it sucks because we had big plans for March break because we were going to record a bunch of things, and then obviously can't do that. Even my friends that are in the same apartment building as us, they only live just upstairs. We can't see them because they help caretake a couple of young kids.
So what, do you communicate through the ceiling in Morse code?
Pretty much, or we send up a flare up to their third floor balcony. It's been interesting to say the least. I mean, it sucks because Blair, my wife, for example, can't see her mom and her sister, And literally, our premier just said anybody who's over the age of 70 needs to self-isolate and quarantine, especially during this time, because it's more dangerous to those people above those ages due to how the virus works. We can't see mom. So it sucks big time. And it mostly has to deal with the way that the virus deals with, I think it's the steroids, the prednisone, which is what they give you if you happen to go on a ventilator. People of that age and people who have immunocompromised things such as asthma and other lung conditions, it can affect them adversely. So if you can't get the steroid to be put on the ventilator, your odds of recovery ain't looking too good. So it's been interesting, to say the least.
It's been kind of crazy down here too. I actually got kind of a funny story that actually came out of this whole thing. So when this whole thing first got started, and the whole big thing was everybody hoarding toilet paper and basically going on raids on grocery stores. I managed to make my way out to the local Giant Foods near to do some grocery shopping, and a guy actually took a swing at me because I caught him trying to steal a package of chicken breasts out of my cart. And I was like, yo, what the fuck you doing? And I snatched the chicken from him, and he took a swing at me, and he wound up catching me in the collarbone. And I don't think he expected that I used to box, so the encounter did not end well for him. So week later, I decided, okay, I'm going to be smart about this. Instead of going at noon like I did the first time, I'm going to go right when they open. So I'm there at 6 o'clock in the morning, and I make my way to the meat department to get my chicken breast, because that's the diet I'm on: baked chicken breast and broccoli. And the dude's there.
Oh,
and
God.
He sees me coming, and he just drops the package of chicken. So I'm just like, I don't want any trouble.
Wow, you boxed a guy for a thing of chicken.
It wasn't even boxing. I just kind of like gave him, like I said, he took a swing at me, caught me in the collarbone, and I just kind of just jabbed him in the face. Like, it wasn't even that hard. It was just enough to knock him back. But I guess this guy is just the pussy of the century. He's I've established dominance now.
Clearly, you are his alpha.
Yeah. So, but yeah, no, it's like but that's the thing. It's like I'm just now that I'm told that I have to stay home. It's like now I don't want it. Now it's like I want to have friends over, and I want to have Smash tournaments and duck game parties, and oh god, it's like now. I don't know. Yeah. It's weird. I'm one of those people who, when you tell me I can't do something, that's when I want to do it the most.
Yeah, I mean, I'm hoping life returns to a sense of normality. I mean, honestly, given the information that I have and understanding, my wife has a minor in medical geography, like just kind of looking at the data we've been given. It would surprise me if life returns to normal by August. That's just the way things go.
Well, can we talk for a second about how absolutely fucking perfect the game releases have been for this month?
Honestly, yeah,
we got fucking Animal Crossing, Final Fantasy VII, Persona 5 Royal, Resident Evil 3 coming out this Friday as we record this. We got a lot of like really meaty games coming out.
Yeah, I mean,
to keep people occupied. So it's like, Doom Eternal, which is fucking amazing. We've got
which I can't play. Accessibility issues. I actually started playing that game about a week ago, and I was the first 15-20 minutes into it, and I just got the like heavy assault cannon just after you fight the first spider demon, and I'm trying to read the menus for it where it describes all your mods and everything and how you can do alternate fires and shit, and I have to sit about 7 or 8 feet back from my television. Otherwise, I have to sit in a really uncomfortable wheelchair, and I have to be on severe amounts of painkillers to sit in it for anything longer than half an hour. So I literally had to write Bethesda and like id Software. I'm like, hi, are you doing anything for accessibility? Because this just kind of fucked me.
Okay, so quick question here. Are you playing on a console, or do you have a PC hooked up to your television? Okay.
I do have a PC, but I don't know whether I could run it properly because my PC is about 4 years old, and I typically request all my games on console anyway. Just
because I have my PC hooked up to my 4K TV, which is a 55-incher, and I sit about 7 to 8 feet away from my television, and I had no trouble seeing the font.
Now, now does that only include story stuff, or does that include
that's everything?
Okay, because on console you can increase story stuff. So when someone's talking, that's fine. But if it's a menu or something, you can increase it a little bit, but it's not big enough to read. Literally, I had my roommate Shannon come out.
Consoles output their resolution differently from PC graphics cards.
Yeah, so I had my roommate come out, and she's able-bodied. So she had to literally stand about 4 feet away from my TV or closer to tell me it was hold L2 to do something. And I'm thinking, you've got to be fucking kidding me. So my Doom Eternal review may be scrapped because I can't see what I mean, I can guess. I'm going to give it the good old college try next week, but motherfucker, I've put 60 hours into Persona 5 Royal so far, so I'm a little bit more intrigued about that because me and Alex are going to do an extended roundtable on that, which, by the way, you're invited to, by the way. Because
I'm going to be too busy playing Persona 5 Royal.
Okay, so, yeah, we'll see how far I get and if you finish in time, so. But anyway, moving on.
Anyway, and so let's see here. But, we've kind of rambled on, so let's see. Next question here. Let's see. This one here comes from Tony, and his question is addressed to me. Although I guess I'll open up to you, Birdman, as well. And his question is what did I think of the Nintendo Mini Direct that released last week? And there wasn't really a whole lot in there for me personally. Like there was a lot of stuff that I know that other people would be excited about, but the only things that were in there that I got really jazzed about were we finally got a release date for the Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition, which I've already got a pre-order in. Although it's looking like the collector's edition is going to have to be like the Link's Awakening one, where I'm going to have to get somebody in Europe to buy it for me and ship it to me because the Europe collector's edition is coming with a steelbook that we're not getting in the U.S. So, and because I'm a collector and fucking sick in the head, I have to have all the neat little goodies. So I have to get the version with the steelbook. So I was excited about that. I'm kind of looking forward to the Bunny Day event for Animal Crossing. Other than that, there wasn't. Oh, and of course the Pokemon DLC. We got some more information on that, but that was something that I'd already purchased and prepaid for. We got the announcement that the next Smash Fighter is going to be from ARMS. Interesting choice. Kind of interested to see how that goes up. I haven't played ARMS, so I don't know anything about the game. So I'm kind of interested to see what they do with the fighter. But that was really the only stuff that really interested me. Excuse me, I take that back. One other thing, Star Wars Episode 1 Racer coming to the Switch. I fucking jumped for joy when I saw that because that is one of my favorite games ever. And I'm hoping. I don't think they will, but I'm hoping they do a port of the Dreamcast version because the Dreamcast version blows the N64 version out of the water. But it probably won't be. It'll probably be the N64 version, if honestly, not a total remaster.
I would love to see them port something like the Rogue Squadron games over to the Switch instead of pod racing. If I had to pick a Star Wars game out of the mini direct, I was surprised they're porting over a bunch of 2K titles like BioShock. I thought that was neat though. Xenoblade Chronicle. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I would have said I was going to buy the BioShock and Borderlands collections if it wasn't for the fact that not all the content is on the card.
Then not worth it.
Yeah.
Xenoblade Chronicles, I'm interested, but I'm not good at these JRPG grind fests. I'm just not. I mean, I play these games.
He says he's gotten 60 hours in on Persona 5.
See, I play the games on stupid. I just want to see the story. Honestly, the puzzles annoy me more often than not, and I actually have to call Blair or I'll use a walkthrough because, man, I don't care about this monster and how hard it is to kill. No, I want my high school teenage dating simulator. Thank you very much. Which I will get Kasumi. Oh yes.
Well, I'm really looking forward to Xenoblade Chronicles. Because Xenoblade Chronicles 2 is my favorite RPG on the Switch, bar none.
I actually have a small Xenoblade story. When the game first came out on the Wii years ago, Nintendo sent me a copy, and I didn't get around to reviewing it because I remember around that release window, I was absolutely just buried in stuff. And I remember they sent me a really nice package for it. And sometimes in reviewing circles, sometimes you don't get to every single game, and that's fine. Company sends you things hoping you'll review it. Do they expect it? It depends. just, that's just the way the cookie crumbles. So a friend of mine was looking for a copy on Facebook like years ago. And he's like, does anybody have a copy of this? Oh my God, I'd be so thankful. I'm like, yeah, sure, take it.
Wait, no, don't tell me. Let me guess, because I think I can guess how the story ends. You got one of the first print copies when they were super rare, and he picked up your copy thinking that it was going to be some super rare, expensive thing right before GameStop did their reprint.
Yep. So he got everything I got out of the Nintendo press kit. So I was like, well, don't I feel stupid? Oh, well, it brought someone else joy. It's not like I'm going to play it. So go get him, Shulk.
This will be the third time I purchased the original Xenoblade Chronicles, because I have it on the Wii, and I've also got the 3DS port. And then if I wind up scoring a European Collector's Edition, that'll make the time. And then I've got 2 copies of Xenoblade Chronicles 2, because I got the base release, and then I also got the Collector's Edition last year on Amazon with the Steelbook and the art book. And
sorry, I was about to say, to also go on the Nintendo Direct, I'm kind of surprised they're doing the ARMS, because I don't think that game sold very well, did it?
Well, like I said, I never played it, so I never really paid much attention to it. I remember I think it was a launch title.
It was.
For the Switch. So that might have given it a bit of a boost, but I mean, Nintendo has historically, not just Nintendo, Sakurai has historically been very willing to include some more obscure or lesser used properties in Smash Bros. I mean, for fuck's sake, how many Punch-Out games have there been? And yet Little Mac is a fighter,
Yeah, but he's always been iconic of the system. But ARMS seems like such a waste of a potential. But then who knows?
Then okay, on that same tack, Shulk from Xenoblade Chronicles, he's a fighter, and I don't think until Xenoblade Chronicles 2 that Xenoblade was a big major property.
I'd say it always had its niche, very passionate audience, but I don't see many ARMS fanboys. In fact, I know like one, and he's like a WWE wrestler, and that's about it that I can think of. Like that, it's just so weird. But hey, party on, right? I mean, I still have to buy my Fighters Pass 2 for the Switch, because I haven't played Smash Brothers in a very long time. Just because I have nobody to play against, because I don't want to get my ass kicked. I mean, I'm pretty good as Mega Man. I used to be good as Samus and Pit, but they changed how Pit worked after Brawl, and I've been pissed off since 2008. But still good as Mega Man, so there's that.
Well,
anyway.
if they give me Pyra in Fighters Pass 2, that'll be all I care about. You can do whatever you want for the other 5, but if I get my baby girl, I'll be happy.
I don't know. Honestly, I take part in a lot of Reddit stuff these days, and people were asking, would they add another Persona character to it? I doubt it. But I was wondering who... Not so soon after Joker. Yeah, but people were saying Kasumi, which would be really cool. But I would honestly, I doubt they'll do it. I don't even know what property I would do, because I got my Castlevania people, so I'm pretty happy.
Well, here's my bet. I'm betting that because I know I'll bet my life that one of the fighters in Fighters Pass 2 is going to be a Pokemon, and my bet is on Urshifu from the Pokemon Sword and Shield DLC.
That would make sense.
That's my bet. So that.
Oh, wait, I did think of one person. If I could pick one person that was popular on a Nintendo franchise, maybe 2, I'd want somebody from Final Fantasy VI, maybe Mog, because he's so iconic of Final Fantasy in general, or I'd want someone from Chrono Trigger, if I had to pick.
I don't know. Given that we've already got the hero from Dragon Quest, that might be a bit of a stretch. I don't know, but I mean,
that's kind of what I'm thinking too.
But I mean, hell, who predicted that Joker was going to be in Smash? So I mean, it's anybody's game at this point. But anyway, we're rambling again. So that's all the time we have for Ask a Geek this week. Thank you as always for sending your questions in. As always, you can send them to us through the email at drgonzo@nerdofthethirdpower.com. Love getting your questions. Love reading them on the air. So yeah, get your questions in. You just might get your question read on the show. and we're just going to wait for you to finish eating your chips.
Oh, sorry. I was just moving something off my desk.
Okay. And
I can't eat chips. I'm on a liquid diet.
And so with that, we're going to jump right into the meat and potatoes of this episode. That is our discussion topic on Star Trek Picard, the CBS All Access exclusive new Star Trek series. And we have thoughts. So I'm just going to go ahead and just give mine up first, because I know that, Mike has already all but said that he's going to rant for about an hour. So I'm going to get my thoughts in while I have the opportunity. And I literally just finished watching this series today, and it's a very strange beast for me to contemplate, because I can't in good conscience call it a bad show, because it has an interesting story, it has compelling characters, and it's got a great presentation. But that's all taken on its own. But the problem is you can't take the show on its own, because it's so inextricably beholden to the fact that this is a sequel to Star Trek: The Next Generation, and this doesn't feel like a Star Trek show to me. It feels. I mean, we'll go into it as we discuss it. But it's very weird to look at this as a Star Trek property, because so much of the tone and the presentation and how the characters conduct themselves don't feel like you're watching a Star Trek show. It feels almost like you're watching, Battlestar Galactica or maybe a Mass Effect series. So it's a very strange beast to contemplate. So those are my general thoughts. Mike, what are your general thoughts on?
Fuck this show. Holy shit. You had one job, CBS. Give me a flagship show that makes CBS All Access worth paying for. Discovery is okay on its best days. That being said, Picard should have been a home run. You got back Patrick Stewart. You got back Jerry Ryan. You got back Jonathan Frakes. You got back people all arguably care about these characters. At the end of the day, and you got back Brent Spiner. At the end of the day, I gave less than a rat's ass about this series. And let me tell you why. The series does start out promisingly enough. It does have a lot of plot problems right from the friggin' get-go, but we'll get there. And I like how it shows Picard as damaged, because this takes place like 18 years after the end of Star Trek Nemesis, which I think was 2379, and this is like 23 something or other. And basically he's retired from the Federation after the attack on Mars, and ultimately it's him banding together a quote-unquote ragtag crew. Where have I heard this before? Star Trek Renegades, which is a fantastic fan film, and you should check it out. And what follows through are half plots that go nowhere, characters you don't give a rat's ass about. I couldn't tell you what half the crew's name was until episode 7. And ultimately, there's just so many things that go ultimately nowhere. There's fan service moments that should be monumental and spectacular, but fall flat on their face. Let me tell you, in the last episode, Captain Riker shows up, and what ship should he be on? He says, and I quote, "This is the Federation flagship. Who US gives a shit." And should that be the Enterprise? Yeah, it should have been the Enterprise. You had one fucking job, CBS. Give us the Enterprise, even if it was just a shot for like 30 seconds, 1 minute, whatever. That entire fleet battle with 200 and something warbirds and Starfleet, they copy and pasted the same ship a million times. Holy shit, what should feel monumental feels lazy. And that speech he gives, get the fuck out of here. Now, that being said, Picard and Data do have a wonderful moment where they finally kill off Data, and Brent Spiner can go to sleep on his truck full of money, realizing I never have to put the Data makeup on again. All I have to do is put on a crazy wig and look like a crazy fat scientist for the rest of my Star Trek career, if I so desire. Because randomly, of course there's another Soong child. Why wouldn't there be? Because reasons.
I guess that segues into us breaking the show down as component parts. So I guess let's start by talking.
Sorry.
start by talking about the story. So the plot of the series, I'll give the recap since it's fresh in my mind. As Mike mentioned, it's a couple decades after Star Trek Nemesis, so we're actually into the 2400s by this point. Picard has long since retired from Starfleet after the destruction of Romulus, which is canon in this series. So those of you who thought of Star Trek 2009 as a bad fever dream, sorry.
Yep, sorry.
He had attempted to perform a rescue mission to rescue the Romulan refugees, but Starfleet pulled the plug on it after an attack of synthetic people on Mars devastated the Mars shipyard, and Starfleet pulled the plug on both the rescue mission and also instituted a ban on synthetic people. So androids, robots, people like Data and the Doctor, they're banned. They're no longer allowed anymore. Well, Picard winds up being approached by this woman named Dodge, who it's eventually discovered that she is in some way connected to Data. But before Picard can find out how precisely, she winds up getting killed by Romulan agents. And over the course of trying to discover where Dodge came from, he discovers that Dodge had a twin sister named Soji, who is a scientist working on a derelict Borg cube for a Romulan Federation alliance. And he comes to the conclusion that Soji is an android created by Dr. Bruce Maddox, who you Next Generation nerds will recall was the antagonist of the great episode Measure of a Man. If you haven't seen it, go watch it. It's spectacular. And as he is still kind of wounded from Data's death and still really hurting from that, he decides that he's going to go after Soji and rescue her as kind of his way of trying to preserve Data's memory in some form. And he recruits a crew of misfits, to borrow a phrase, including Dr. Girardi, a Daystrom Institute robotics scientist who's kind of looking for a purpose in life since the ban has basically put her out of work, and also has a connection to Bruce Maddox. Raffi, a former Starfleet officer who bears a serious grudge against Picard. Let's see, let me pull up the cast list here, because I need names. A ship captain named Cristobal Rios, who is also a former past of his own. And eventually also hooks up with Seven of Nine, who has become this sort of a Punisher-style vigilante in the wild reaches of space, the former Romulan neutral zone. And they go off to rescue Soji and discover what her, where she came from and why she was built. And they discover that there's this Romulan conspiracy that has this prophecy that synthetic life will bring about the doom of the universe, and that's why the Romulans are trying to get a hold of Soji, because they're trying to figure out where she comes from so that they can go to the planet and blow up all the androids. And Soji is also discovering that she herself is an android and is having her own little identity crisis. There's a lot of whiz-bang shooting action. They eventually go to the android planet, where it's discovered that this prophecy was actually a set of instructions for synthetic life to summon these extra-dimensional synthetic aliens that would basically purge the galaxy of organic life to free the synthetics from oppression. If this all sounds familiar, congratulations, you played Mass Effect.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So, and this is sort of where a lot of the crux of my issues with this show come from. Like I said, I'm not prepared to call it bad. Because the story was interesting and it had compelling characters, I feel, but it didn't feel like Star Trek. This is Star Trek. Here's the thing. Okay, the tone of Star Trek normally, even at its darkest moments, has always been about hope and optimism. That things might be bad, but we can if we work together, we can get past it and build a brighter tomorrow. Whereas this series, for the first 5 or 6 episodes, it seems like it's determined to do everything it can to tear down every single happy ending that it can from the previous series. The one that really raised my eyebrows was there's a character from Star Trek Voyager named Icheb, who was a former Borg drone who was assimilated as a child, but he was liberated from the collective, and Seven of Nine kind of adopted him over the course of Star Trek Voyager. Well, he shows up in the first part of I think it's episode 4.
5.
And episode 5. And the poor dude is getting tortured. He's having all his Borg components ripped out by this doctor, And 7 of 9 has to wind up mercy killing him. And I'm just like, that just felt kind of mean-spirited to me. We see Hugh show up from Borg, and he winds up getting offed. We find out that that Picard's career basically ended in disgrace. There's the whole thing with Starfleet, who's this organization that's supposed to uphold the ideals of the Federation, basically leaving an entire planet of people to die, and it doesn't feel like Star Trek. It feels very cynical and dark and bitter, and like I said, something more in line with, say, Battlestar Galactica or Mass Effect than Star Trek. So it's very hard for me to reconcile this as being a sequel to Star Trek: The Next Generation, when The Next Generation was such an upbeat and optimistic show.
My main problem is I wish they would listen to goddamn lore, because they think Starfleet has all this wonderful power. No, it really doesn't. Starfleet is not a military organization. The United Federation of Planets is different. Starfleet is a division within the United Federation of Planets. Starfleet doesn't have the authority to do what they're doing. And you're telling me the United Federation of Planets, even on their worst day, would pull the plug on this Romulan rescue operation? You know how many planets would be like, yeah, no, you're not leaving billions of people to die? Now, planetary evacuations, that aside, are incredibly hard to pull off, because even a Galaxy-class starship, which is what the Enterprise D was, on its best day can hold 15,000 people in an emergency situation. Would still take quite a number of ships to pull off an evacuation of this size, but you get my point here. This series is mean-spirited. It's not written consistently. Hell, that whole ex-Borg thing you were talking about, where they killed Icheb, they treated legacy characters like shit in this series. Like, the murder of Icheb by 7 of 9, don't buy it for a minute. Not in the least. Hugh getting offed by a random knife attack? Okay, sure, because we're just going to get rid of him. Honestly, one of the best moments with Hugh was a moment that was improv, where him and Picard meet on the artifact and they hug. That moment was improv. That's one of the best moments. I think my thoughts about this series is there are occasionally cool moments broken up by mind-numbing stupidity. Like, honestly, one of the best moments of the entire series, and I am fully serious when I say this, was Riker eating pizza in the woods. There is a phrase I never thought I would utter in the phrase of Star Trek ever. Like, it's just, I'm so mad at this series because they had so many things to get right. Like, if you took out the entire subplot with the Borg artifact, you would lose nothing. Literally, it was there as set dressing. There could have been a subplot about people being liberated, people who are oppressed, about outsiders, and it was just there because they wanted the Borg there. They wanted a nostalgia trip to suck you in.
And they didn't even go whole hog by showing an actual Borg drone. The only Borg they show are the XBs, who are people who've had the lion's share of their Borg implants removed. Now, I went into this series not wanting to see the Borg as the villains, because even though they're my favorite evil Star Trek race, even I'll admit, look, they were done to death in Voyager. There's really not much more you can do to make space zombies scary again. But I would have loved to have seen a full-blown Borg, at least one full-blown Borg drone with this show's, Spielbergian budget. And they pussied out right at the last minute by having 7 of 9 activate the drones, then they all got blown out into space.
I'm glad you brought that up. I'm so glad you did. Okay, so that scene, 7 of 9 connects herself to the cube. She's connected to the central plexus and the vernaculum, I think it's called. Either way, she's connected. She can control the drones on a local level. She's going to activate a small Borg army. She's ready to assault the rest of the Romulan force. Cool. She says, "We are the Borg." Her eyes go black. All the drones are released from their alcove. Stupid Romulan incest lady blows them out in the space. 7 screams no. Okay, you recalled this scene playing out, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Rewind that tape, because Borg can survive in hard vacuum. Those Borg are not dead. You know what you have on board a Borg cube? Transporters. This is a Borg assimilation cube. It is not a tactical cube, so I know you can do mass transport. Those Borg drones are not lost. They are a minor inconvenience at best. Holy shit. What should have been an awesome Borg versus Romulan shit-kicking, which they set up that during that entire episode via Elnor, aka Romulan samurai guy, who only does a few cool things, honestly, who's there more for comic relief. They just completely throw it aside. That's why I said the entire artifact set was used so heavily in all the promotional stuff for this, it didn't matter. So much of this show didn't matter. Like, I think it was episode 3 or 4, either way, before they got to Casino Planet, was just filler. And not even good filler. Like, honestly, you could have condensed this down to probably 8 episodes. The first 5 episodes of this show meander on. And I realize it's gathering the crew for this epic quest, but you could have trimmed some things here and there if you really wanted to speed things up. And you also are not constrained by the time because you are a network show or because you're a CBS All Access show. However, that being said, here in Canada, this show is being broadcast on regular TV. So they had to trim down its runtime. So that's something to be very kind of mindful of. Despite having a wonderful budget by CBS, they cut some corners on some of the actual runtimes. Where was I going with this? Right. So, things just ran weird. And moments that should have been wonderful successes for these characters ultimately fell flat. I mean, I was happy to see Brent Spiner back as Data, but I knew they were going to blow their wad in the first episode with Data's flashback, and I knew he was coming back in the finale as a flashback, and they're finally going to kill him. Which, by the way, Star Trek Picard has one of the most honorific places in Star Trek history. We now have Picard's brain. Can we talk about how stupid that was? Picard is now an android. He's literally Picard.exe-1. That's stupid. Oh my god, that's stupid. And the only reason I think that happened is because this show got a second season renewal, and they're like, oh shit, how do we fix this? Patrick, we need you back on the set for 10 minutes. And they fixed it that way. If you're going to kill a legacy character, that's okay. Make it have weight. Make it have merit. Make it have an emotional connection. If Picard had died, that would have been fine. But when Picard has 15 minutes left in the episode, and Captain Picard's dying, I don't believe it. Plus, all these relationships that some of these characters forms, you're telling me Dr. Girardi, Alison Pill, murders Bruce Maddox, and you just leave him alone with Picard because, oh, she's sorry. Oh, shit, man. That's cool. You're sorry. Didn't realize it. Excuse me. No, not buying it. There are just so many inconsistencies with the writing in this show. It drives me nuts.
My issues with the writing was there are some things that are stated that are then later contradicted or don't make a whole lot of sense. And I actually took some notes as I was watching the series. So one of the first ones is in episode 5 where we finally track down Bruce Maddox. The episode opens with him going into the casino and talking to basically a mob boss and saying that the Romulans have destroyed his lab. Okay, but then at the end of the series, in the last 2 parts, it's established that his lab was on this planet full of androids. So how could the Romulans have destroyed his lab if they couldn't find it? And if he had a secondary lab, why would he need that secondary lab in the first place if he had this fully equipped one on Coppelius? Another one that didn't make any sense to me was this Romulan cult, the Zhat Vash, that has this genocidal hatred of androids. If they've been around for centuries, then how come they never once took a shot at Data or Dr. Soong? Let's see, another issue that I have. Why was Dodge programmed to seek out Picard? Do you remember? Was there ever any reason given for that?
No.
Yeah, I don't remember there ever being a reason why she was programmed to seek out Picard, especially. Here's a big one from the last 2 episodes. If androids cannot be read telepathically, as Counselor Troy says in the one episode she shows up, then how could Sutra, the one android, initiate a mind meld with Dr. Girardi?
I saw this answered on Twitter, and the answer was because the Vulcan mind meld is a chemical process, an android can emulate it, and I don't buy that explanation either. I'm like, no, it's something special to Vulcans. Sometimes not everything can be explained through science. Sometimes it's just something unique to them. It makes them different. Like, and you bring up an interesting point, mentioning the Jat Vash and having their huge hatred of artificial intelligence. So they were just cool with holodecks and other photonic. Why didn't they kill Dr. Zimmerman, the guy who developed the EMH? Because he's a pretty big proponent of artificial life. So, and considering Voyager's been back in the Delta, or back from the Delta Quadrant since 2379, that's 20 years of R&D, and they clearly so many problems, and like you said, they contradict themselves.
The thing is, like, so many of these issues that you're bringing up, that I'm bringing up, they could all be they wouldn't be issues if this wasn't a Star Trek series.
Yeah,
and
I mean,
that's the big issue. Is like, you know, like I've already said this episode. If you take this show in a vacuum, it's a good series, but you can't take it in a vacuum because it is so beholden to the fact that it is a sequel to Star Trek: The Next Generation and is building directly off of that.
See, I completely disagree. This show is not good. There are some good performances. There are some good moments, but as a whole, this show is hot garbage.
Well, I guess let's segue into the performances then, since that seems to be where most of your compliments lie.
I mean, Patrick Stewart honestly gives a great performance whenever he's on screen. However, though, since you just watched the series, how often did you realistically see Patrick Stewart? For a series called Picard, he really wasn't there a whole hell of a lot. It was mostly a lot of the side characters running around.
I mean, I didn't notice the screen time being distributed any more or less unevenly than it was in your average Next Generation episode. I mean, this felt like an ensemble show to me. I mean, I
don't know. To me, it felt a little bit eh. Other than that,
maybe I mean that might have something to do with the length of the series.
Maybe
that maybe with just having 10 episodes, they maybe bit off a little more than they could chew as far as character focus.
I think part of it, well, I'll get to that when we get to our final thoughts. I do think Alison Pill as Girardi, she was okay. I know her mostly for her like comedy work, and I know her mostly from Scott Pilgrim versus the World. She felt a little out of place, and that maybe not because of her as an actress, but how her character was written. She's a little too quirky and a little too funny, ha ha ha, for the seriousness of the situation around her. The guy that plays Rios, I enjoyed him immensely, especially when he played the 5 different holograms. That was a particularly funny moment.
Give that man a medal for his accent skills, because holy crap.
Yeah, that was
if you asked me to pull off a French accent, an Irish accent, and a Spanish accent in rapid succession, I would not be able to do it.
Yeah, like he blended seamlessly. The girl that played Raffi, she was all right. 7 of 9. I've got a big problem with this. Jeri Ryan, very inconsistent from considering how her character ended at the end of Voyager to what we see now, her as a Fenrir Ranger working on the edges of the Romulan neutral zone. Yeah, this is not the 7 of 9 we knew. And that's more a case of the writing. And she comes off as this badass Batman type person, and I don't buy it for a second. And I think maybe that's Jeri Ryan's dissatisfaction. I mean, I remember I watched a thing, I think it was on Watch Mojo on their Trek Culture channel. And I think she said, I think Jeri Ryan has said she hasn't had a good time with the Star Trek franchise. She didn't have a particularly good time on Voyager with her and Kate Mulgrew. So I don't know. I just assumed CBS backed up a truckload of money to her house and like, hey, people like you're sexy Borg lady. And I do like the girl that played Soji in Dodge. I thought she had some wonderful character moments when they let her breathe. But other ones were just stupid. Romulan incest twins were ultimately stupid. One person who I think might as well have walked off the set from 1994 or 2003, and he never skipped a beat. Jonathan Frakes. That Riker was Riker from TNG without missing a heartbeat. That man is a gem. Same with Marina Sirtis. Yeah, Sirtis. She played Troy once again gracefully. Those two deserve something because they were their characters. And that's another thing to bring up. Just quick side. So they mentioned their kid has died as a result of this synthetic ban. Correct, right? That is. Mm-hmm. You're telling me the same Riker that I knew growing up in TNG, etc., wouldn't have gone to the Ferengi. He wouldn't have gone to the Cardassian. He wouldn't have gone to anybody in the Alpha Quadrant, in the Beta Quadrant, to save his son, but he would let his son die because the Federation said so, because it was the right thing to do. Don't buy it for a second.
I think you might be confusing Riker with Cisco. Cisco was always much more rebel.
Yeah. No, Riker's not going to let a kid die because some bureaucrat in an office said so. Not buying it.
Well, they also said that by the time he was diagnosed, there wasn't much they could do anyway.
Still, it's weak writing. Brent Spiner, as always, is wonderful. As Data, again, he was able to step right into that role, though 20 pounds heavier for sure. Him as the Soong was fine. I really liked it. When the cast had their moments together, they were pretty good, although some characters were ultimately forgettable. Elnor, all I know about him is he's a Romulan samurai and he thinks he's funny. Okay, sure. Hugh, from what we got to see of Hugh, was fine. He worked great.
See, he was one of the legacy characters that I was really disappointed that they did as little with him as they did, because, you know, having Hugh come back, I mean, he was to me a very memorable character from Next Generation, and his episode Iborg is one of my top 5 favorite Next Gen episodes. So when I heard that he was going to be coming back for the series, I was looking forward to what they're going to be doing with him, and I was especially excited once I discovered that they were doing this whole synth oppression angle. You know, because I was like, oh well, we got a nice little mirror here with the XBs and Hugh. There's some interesting ethical questions they could explore here, and they didn't do it. They just offed them, and that's that. And I was so disappointed with. Again, it felt like the show was just trying to tear down as many happy endings as it could from Next Generation. I was really disappointed with how they treated Hugh.
Well, yeah, like I said, this show, if it's anything, it proves what happens when you do not have a series Bible written from the start. This series writers and directors were scattered all over the spectrum. I can't recall any specific details. My other co-hosts from Twig can tell you, but we've had extensive discussions about this. And some episodes are better directed and written than others, but there's always multiple writers on each episode, so nothing ever gets focused on. The performances are generally okay. Sometimes they feel a little awkward, but any of the legacy characters, for the most part, get to breathe, with the exception of 7 of 9, who's wildly inconsistent. And I don't know. I mean, overall, Patrick Stewart and Frakes are probably my big takeaways out of the new characters. I like Daj and Girardi, and the other ones, they're just kind of there. I mean, I don't hate them, but if they never showed up again, I'd be okay.
So, let's see. So, all right. So that's before we talk about the presentation of this series, which I was thoroughly impressed with as far as the CGI effects and the ship effects. It was great to see. As much as I'm with you on the copy and pasting of the Federation starships in that last scene. I gotta admit, I was pretty jazzed seeing Federation starships in full blown CGI with modern graphics as opposed to the models they were using in the 80s and 90s.
I disagree. I think the stuff from the 80s and 90s looked better for models, because practical will always look better than CG. However, that being said, the starships did look okay, although for a show that happens in space, you only ever get 1 minute that happens in space per episode. Go back and watch. However, though...
I'll tell you something...
Sorry.
Go ahead. Well, you interrupted me first, so it's only fair I get to interrupt you back. I'll tell you something that did raise my eyebrows, though, and that was the weapon designs. So those phaser compression rifles that Jerry Ryan was dual wielding in episode 5, look me in the eye and tell me those weren't Halo assault rifles.
Yeah, you noticed that too, huh?
Yeah. I have expected to see Master Chief just show up.
Whoever was the armorer for this show wasn't paying a lot of attention. Now, obviously, there's different weapons and races in the Federation, so not everything has to be Starfleet standard, and that's okay. I was still annoyed at... My biggest problem is how they went with the Marvel Universe style of everything's a holographic interface. So the LCARS interface, which Star Trek has used forever of all touch screens and everything, is now gone. It's all controlled by you flicking your wrist. And there was something, I can't remember where it was from, where somebody who worked on the original series or something like that was saying, well, how do these people do anything without any tactile feedback? Like and that reminds me, Captain Picard just knows how to fly the ship after watching Rios do it for a while. Again, not buying it. I didn't like the change to that, but then again, everything has to evolve. Technology over 20 years? Yeah, sure. Okay, why not? I didn't like the sets of the new ship. It didn't feel like or like anything from the Star Trek universe. That being said, again, many races, many variants. There's commercial, there's civilian, and there's military. So, all right, I guess I'm willing to let that one slide too. The sets for the Borg cube were okay when it got to breathe, but you never saw Borg in alcoves. You never saw a lot of things that could be explored, and when it was all very, very, very quick. Some of the places they went to for sets were pretty cool. It was cool seeing Starfleet Academy in the first 2 episodes. That was kind of neat. I also like how in the last 2 episodes, it was kind of a throwback to the original series where they're all young, good-looking hippies, yet they're all androids. So that was fun. And then when the Reapers show up was kind of amusing. But the effect looked neat, and now we know what space squids look like as this super predator life form.
Or at least what their tentacles look like. Yeah.
Yeah. Honestly, I want someone to dub that scene with like Harbinger's voice.
Yeah, that was one of the one area of the presentation that I was really kind of disappointed in, was like as I'm watching the last episode where Picard is flying through the battle between the Romulans and the fucking flower ships. I'm looking at this, I'm like, I'm watching a video game. This is the attack on Earth from Mass Effect 3. Like, yeah,
it was hilarious. I watched this episode. I watched this when it dropped at 3 a.m. Eastern last week because I was up playing Persona anyway, and I took a break, and I howled with laughter when I saw that. I'm pretty sure I woke up at least one neighbor because that's how ridiculous it looked. Like, I made this joke on Twitter. I'm pretty sure whoever wrote this series and wrote in the backstory of the overarching Zhat Vash and about the super predator coming from outside the galaxy did a playthrough of Mass Effect, wrote it on the back of a napkin while driving down a highway in crayon, and they forgot almost everything. All they got was Reaper, and somehow it made it to the screen. Wow, I'm so negative. It feels so good. Anyway, but seeing the new ship design at the end for the Federation, I didn't get the class name of what that ship was called. Seeing the new uniforms for Starfleet was different. Evidently, they've changed since the days of Nemesis, so that's okay. I don't mind. I'm not a big fan of the comm badges. Like, I'm a big guy who's into like kind of props and stuff.
See, I like the comm badges, and here's why. Those are the comm badges from All Good Things, from the future segments of the last episode of the series. I thought that was a neat touch. Another neat touch, and this is something that I caught, and I watched this series with my dad, and he didn't catch it. I had to explain to him. But in the episode with Riker, when he says that he's got shields on his house because he's having trouble with the Kzinti, the Kzinti are actually a race that appeared in the Star Trek animated series, and they're actually the only Star Trek aliens not to be created for Star Trek. They're actually borrowed from Larry Niven's Known Space series. So I was like, I wonder if they had to pay him royalties for that.
Now, I'm glad you mentioned that episode. When you hear Riker and Troy say, all right, shields up, anti-cloaking measures activated and all that bullshit, were you not hoping for like a Romulan strike team to show up and at least get their asses kicked or something? Like, that's a moment of setup that should have been awesome.
I see where you're coming from. I honestly would have been disappointed if they had done that, because at that episode was basically the time the story needed to breathe, to kind of establish what was happening, where it was going. Because the whole big plot throughout the story is essentially split in half. There's the search for Soji, and then there's the search for her homeworld. And when you get to that midpoint, you need to have an episode where things slow down a bit so that you can tie up the last loose ends of the initial subplot and start up the threads of the second one. And I feel like having a Romulan strike team show up at that moment would have muddied things even further.
I just think it would have been something to break up the episode, because the episode is essentially solved by a MacGuffin. Randomly, their daughter says, oh, by the way, there's this random captain whose face you never see but only ever hear of, and he knows exactly where this world is. And some of my friends had theorized it was Q, because Q has always had an interest in Riker. Even through Voyager, he expressed an interest in him. And that was the big thing, is that Q brought these people together. No, the writers on this series are not that fucking clever.
So yeah, I would. If they brought Q into the series, I would have walked. I wouldn't even have finished it.
My guess is
that was the one thing I didn't want them to do.
There's a theory I've heard, and I'd be okay with it. If Q does come back, this is an extended trial of humanity post All Good Things. And Q realizing Picard sacrificing himself for the synthetics would have been a fitting end. Because he would have been like, you were willing to do something for those who hated you and feared you. Why? Because it was the right thing to do, because all life deserves to exist.
I don't agree, because Q was never interested in humanity's morality. He was more interested in them exploring possibilities. He wasn't really interested in moral or ethical concerns.
I would argue that, because in All Good Things, he does say the trial of humanity has now been completed.
Well, yeah, so, but the trial was never about ethics or morality. It was about Picard being willing to consider new possibilities. But anyway, we're going off on tangent.
That's more of a philosophical debate there. Yeah. But one of the things I will say about this, and I guess we should probably begin to wrap things up. CBS All Access put money into the show. That much is obvious. CBS All Access has Star Trek Discovery, which is now 3 seasons deep as of this summer. Star Trek Picard has been renewed, I think, for 2 more seasons.
I know. At least it's got a second season, because Whoopi Goldberg has been confirmed to be coming back as Guinan, which I'm actually excited for.
Same here, and I think Robert Picardo is coming back as the holographic Doctor. One of my big problems is CBS All Access does not have a lot of flagship shows outside of Star Trek, which means it has to do a lot to draw in viewers. It's not worth the... how much is it for you in the States? Like $7 a month?
Somewhere around there. It's not all that expensive.
Yeah, I mean, in Canada, it's like $5, because we don't get Star Trek here. We get it on Amazon Prime, and we get it on broadcast TV. But the point I'm trying to make here is CBS needs a banger of a show to keep going, and Star Trek Picard should have been that banger that drew people in. And it did. It drew in a lot of new people, but I don't think it's going to keep the momentum going as much as it wants, because I think the Star Trek fandom, it's changing radically, as we've seen with how this show presents itself. As at one point it was 24 but with phasers, and that's not what Star Trek has been about. And as we discussed off the top of the show, typically Star Trek is about hope, optimism, and that things can change. That darker tone does not fit. That's more in line with a Battlestar Galactica, which is fine to tell those stories occasionally, but to have it so grim dark doesn't suit the tone. Things did change in places, but ultimately, I'm not so sure.
It really didn't feel like Star Trek until the last half hour of the show.
Yeah, and one of the best moments of the series was where Picard and Data finally said goodbye, where Captain, you have to let me go, but knowing that you love me is a small but significant part of my memory, but don't bring me back. And I'm glad they did that just to give those two characters closure. And it was just those two sitting in a room talking. Star Trek's strength when it wants to be is not big epic space battles versus the Borg or the Jem'Hadar or, the Gorn or whoever. It's small interpersonal moments. It's moments exploring the philosophy and, as you said previously, where humanity can go. And when you give the characters in the series a chance to breathe, it can do a lot. Picard failed that spectacularly until about the last half hour. This series had a lot of chance to comment on a lot of social issues right now, and I felt it maybe missed the mark more often than it should have. I wanted more from this series. I'm vastly disappointed. Will I watch season 2? Begrudgingly, because I'm hoping it'll get better. But if I see another character just tortured on screen or another person blown up into pink phaser mist, I'm out and I'm not coming back.
Well, for me, like I said, I'm not prepared to call this a totally bad show because, like I said, if you take it on its own, it has an interesting story, it has compelling performances. But the problem is you really can't take it on its own because it's so beholden to Star Trek. So, I'm hoping that in season 2 they lean a little more into, the Star Trek tone and kind of get away from the Mass Effect, the Battlestar Galactica, the 24-inch space angle, and kind of, make things a little more optimistic. Because let's be honest, right now we kind of need that. So, like I said, Star Trek Picard is a very strange beast for me to contemplate because it's one of those things where everything it does right is also something that it does wrong because of the nature of what it is, if that makes any real sense. So, I guess the only real thing I can say as far as an opinion is, take a look at it and see if it's for you. I can't really make a good or bad judgment call either way. It's really hard for me to consider because everything that I would consider a positive, I also have to turn around and kind of say is also a bit of a negative because it doesn't fit with Star Trek, if that makes any real sense.
Ultimately, read the wiki on it, read the summary of each episode, and if you want to see it, go back and check it out that way, because the storyline is now officially canon, so it wipes out everything you've played in Star Trek Online, which was considered canon for years, but now it's been de-canonized. And if this is the official end of TNG, which I guess it's not because seasons 2 and 3, temper your expectations. Expect Patrick Stewart to be wonderful because he's Patrick Stewart. And when Patrick Stewart wears an eye patch and pretends to be a French raving madman, that's particularly hilarious. Although, just want to mention one thing. If you go back to that episode, there's a reference to Mott the Barber. Mott the Barber became a franchised hair shop. And I'm so glad for him. He was the bully barber aboard the Enterprise.
And in that same shot, did you catch Quark's Bar?
I did. He also franchised, so good for him. But yeah, right. I mean, I want this series to continue to improve. I can't wait for the new showrunner to get in. I hope the writer's room gets more consistent, though I know all the good Star Trek writers are working on the Orville right now, so I guess we'll wait and see. But yeah, my opinion is, you know what? If you got nothing else to do and when masturbation's lost its fun, well, you got this, I guess.
All right, and I guess that's well. On that sordid note, that's all the time we have for Power this week. Thank you so much for tuning in. We'll see you guys next week for Fools Who Ride, and in 2 weeks we'll be back to Nerd of the Third to discuss The Witcher. So, yeah, we will see you guys then. As always, I'm Dr. Gonzo.
I have been 7 of 9.
We'll see you guys next time. Taka, play us out.